So we'll dive in. This session is about passwords, password management, stuff like that. We thought it'd be necessary to kind of pre-group and bring passwords top of mind for everyone. So here is just some kind of information regarding passwords of why they're quite important in the enterprise world. The cybersecurity practice is vital. I mean, more and more so as we progress into the future. It protects our personal self, it protects our identity, it protects our bank accounts, it protects our intellectual property, our software code, everything from every little nook and cranny that people might want to get their hands on that shouldn't have their hands on. It basically protects it from them. So without secure passwords, without utilization and implementation of those secure passwords is really where it gets troublesome, and where a big part of that cybersecurity implementation really comes from. So Telesign is a company based out of Europe. They do surveys conducting around a few things, but mainly this one was about password security and incidents related to passwords. So they polled about 2,000 people from the UK and USA, and they found out that basically roughly 3 out of 4 of their participants used a duplicate password across accounts. Basically, if they used ABC1234, it's probably that they used it across their Facebook, their Twitter, and their bank account. Whether they knowingly did that, or they didn't understand the impacts of what that could cause, they just that's in use. The same users also reported not changing their password in the last 5 years. So these 2 points right off the bat are quite troublesome, and can lead to that kind of mindset, can lead to a really insecure framework for yourself, you're the individual, and if you're working for the company or securing things for the company, that it would translate over to that. An additional fact on that survey is that 21% of the people that reported using a password that is over 10 years old, which means that 21% of these people created their passwords sometime around the creation of the iPhone back in 2007, 2009, when I think the iPhone 2 came out. So those passwords have been set in stone, more or less, the way to look at it, but they can be changed. And that's what we want to try and aim to do today. The following passwords that were the most commonly used passwords in 2018 were shown here at the bottom here. You can see 1234556, password 123456789, all very not great passwords, the most predominantly used across the internet. So that things need to change, and I think a large part of that is dealing with managing your passwords across multiple accounts. As you realize that it gets more sophisticated, having 10 or 15 passwords, you just kind of give up and are like, okay, we're going to just use one. We'll deal with it when it happens. So here's some more statistics that came out of that survey, and another survey that surveyed another 2,000 consumers. 73% of online accounts are guarded by duplicate passwords. 54% of the people use 5 or fewer passwords across their entire online life. 47% of people use passwords that are at least 5 years old. 21% of people use passwords that are over 10 years old. And in the past year, 2 in 5 people either have had received a notice that their personal information has been compromised, had an account attack, or password stolen. So in this day and age, this report was done in late 2015. So 4 years ago, it's old enough, but not really old to not consider it, relevant anymore. If anything, I'm assuming these numbers have gotten worse, not better. So it's definitely top of mind. And then the one thing that this session is really going to segue nicely into is, on average, only 6 unique passwords are used to guard 24 online accounts, meaning that, those 24 accounts could be random, they could be unlinked, they could be, 24 different users, but 6 unique passwords are using to guard those ones. So more than one person that not even knowingly are using the same passwords, and things like that need to change as we secure our digital future. So we will continue on to, and how we're going to solve some of these problems, at least how I've been solving it, ITSS has been solving it, and the tech ops team of Icometrics has been solving it. Utilization of a password manager. By no means is a password manager, the end-all be-all solution to security. There's a few other aspects that you really need to implement and stay on top of in order to really secure your digital life. But starting with this password manager is really going to be the key to the first step to, really securing that identity. So we can use a 3-step process. First, diving into using a password manager, as shown here. It's basically creating an initial master password. We'll go through what that is in the next slide here. But basically, you create a master password for a password manager. For the purpose of this session, we're going to use LastPass as our kind of reference point. But if you have like password managers like Apple KeyPass and stuff like that. And there's a few other ones up there that I'm aware of. I mean, LastPass is not the only one that's good to use or the only one that's secure. It's password managers are really, in our opinion, going to be the way of the future in securing our digital presence. So you can use any password manager, but we'll focus on LastPass for the duration of this session. Once you've created that mastered password, that's the last password you ever have to use. Although we're going to make it super complex, super secure, it is the last password that you ever have to use with a password manager. Every single other account, such as like your Facebook, your TD Bank account, your Twitter account, they're all going to use different, highly secure, highly randomized passwords that the password manager can then use and put into the website when you need to log in. Step 2 is to using that password manager to store the passwords. You create a new account, you can store your password immediately in the password manager. You can automatically generate a highly secure password for it. You don't have to jump through hoops of setting it to an easy one and then setting it to a secure one and manually updating LastPass. LastPass really makes it easy for you, and all of the other password managers really make it easy for you to be able to almost seamlessly integrate LastPass with your login forms on a day-to-day basis. And then step 3 is kind of a non-related but important step to do for password managers, at least in our opinion, is to leverage two-factor authentication for the password manager. This creates an extra level of security. Since we're going to be using one password for all of our other accounts, we might want to lock that down super tight with some two-factor authentication. So we will dive through these 3 steps in the coming slides and show you how to leverage this. So we'll move on here. So step 1 is creating that secure master password. There's multiple ways. There's multiple really good ways to create passwords. The easiest that I think I have discovered, at least for myself, and this be different from user to user, is to use a multi-word seed. I'm sure as days go on, there'll be some white paper showing how maybe this isn't the most best way, possibly moving forward. But I believe it's quite secure. To generate a 4-word or an 8-word or a 12-word password seed, as we'll call it, simply just combining 4, 8, or 12 random words together. You can use any number of words. You can use even more than 12, but I think at like 8 or 12, you're creating quite a complex password that's going to be sophisticated enough to secure your digital life, and you don't have to really go above and beyond that. Otherwise, you're really just going overkill, in my opinion. What we'll do is step 2 here is we'll create that 4-word seed. So we literally just can grab 4 dictionary words or 8 dictionary words. For this example, we'll use 4-word seed, and we'll use the words lemon, bronco, electrical, and internet. 4 simple, unrelated words. Electrical and internet might be related. That wasn't intentional by any means. So all we do is we combine these 4 words together, create the word lemon, bronco, electrical, internet. It seems like right off the bat, you might say, oh, that's hard to remember. So maybe you can play around with words, something that just kind of hits your mind, and you're like, oh, I remember that. So for me, since I've created this slide, I haven't forgotten these 4 words: lemon, bronco, electrical, internet, and it's probably a password that I could use in the future. Maybe not now that I've used it in the session. We'll show you how secure it is. So just adding those 4 words together really already creates quite a secure password. We'll do a couple extra steps to make this even more secure. But that alone right there is a secure password in itself, in terms of brute force difficulty. So step 3 is then an additional generation tool or website can be used. So you don't have to manually think of these words. There's websites out there. There's apps you can download on your phone that are that kind of isolate the environment, create the random words of strings so that you don't have to do it yourselves. Kind of use dictionary words that aren't linked together, so it kind of helps in that front. There's multiple ways to do it, but I think by far the best way is to do it is just to do it in your head and write them down on a piece of paper, not connected to the internet, and then either destroy that piece of paper or lock that piece of paper in a safe so that you can if you ever do need access to it again. But we really don't recommend securing that password anywhere physical or digital. The best is to come up with a word seed that you can remember, that's going to be embedded in your brain for the rest of your life, kind of like your address or your phone number is embedded. It's just a 8-digit or word phrase that's embedded in your brain. Really, if you have to store it somewhere, the only recommended place is probably in a locked safe, somewhere that you would store your passport. Very crucial information. Nothing online by any means. You don't want to store this on like Dropbox or a notepad on your desktop or a notebook in your desk. That's not optimal security by any means. So we'll want to try and remember this or lock it in a safe if we have to write it down. So with all of that said, we want to know how secure is our password. There's a website that some people like to use on the internet. It's called howsecureismypassword.net. It's nothing elaborate. It just basically takes the length of your password, including what characters you've used, runs it through an algorithm to basically say, if I was brute forcing your your password with a basic computer, with one computer, this is roughly how long it would take, starting at A and working its way through the letters on a brute force attack. I mean, 63 decillion years is quite a long time, but we can do a little bit better to make this a little bit more secure, since it's going to be our master password. So our password right now is Lemon Bronco Electrical Internet. We're not going to change it too sophistically here. We're going to just add camel case and add a symbol to the end. So the fifth step of that, creating a secure master password that we could add, is capitalizing the beginning of each word. Some refer to this as camel case. So what we'll do is we'll also remove the spaces from in between each word and then capitalize the beginning of each word. And then as you can see here, the LBEI. And then we will also add a random symbol or number to the end of the password of your choice. Preferably not a number that means anything, not like a birth date or anything of that such. If you're gonna use a random number, just completely pick 3 random digits that that are meaningful to you, that you are going to remember, and that could be more than enough to add the extra protection you need. So just from updating this password from lemon space bronco space electrical space internet, we've already increased it by a factor of, I think that's like 10x. So substantially more secure and little to no change from the initial password. And this can be done to like your current passwords if you want to start playing around with that. Like I said, there's no really ultimate way to make a master password or a secure password. I just find this to be the best and the easiest way to remember it, rather than having 100 different letters, numbers, characters, symbols that are uppercase, lowercase. It's kind of hard to remember that, and it really doesn't add any extra security, being one from the other. So yeah, this is probably the way that I would do it. So we'll move on to leveraging this password that we've now created, Lemon Bronco Electrical Internet, into the password manager, in this case, LastPass. So if you want to sign up for LastPass, you can do so at lastpass.com. They offer free accounts for personal use, for like business use, and for like family use. If you want to share passwords between like a family of 4, I think it's like $10 or $15 a year. But I mean, I only use the personal unpaid account, so I think it's more than fine for most personal use and work use if it's single individual use. So yeah, we'll dive into LastPass here. So LastPass Summary is that it's the password manager of choice by the technical operations team of Icometrics. So ITSS, the infrastructure team, they both love LastPass. It stores a lot of our credentials for both like production related stuff and internal corporate related stuff. We can quickly share it between the team and to other users without having to write it down or put it through Slack or an unsecured communications channel. We can just pipe it right over through LastPass. So that's awesome. It offers a completely free service for individuals. So if you just want to use it for your bank accounts, your Twitter and your Facebook, you can sign up for free today in a matter of minutes, get your accounts secured, and move forward with a more secure digital future. Additionally, they have Android and iPhone applications. So, I mean, if you're mobile and you're out and about, you can quickly get your password accesses from your cell phone. They have browser extension plugins so that, you don't even have to log into the website. You just have a plugin. It's, you log in once, it's ready for 30 days, and then you can grab the passwords from there super easily, autofill right into the form. It's super awesome. Getting into the nitty gritty now, the secure side of things, hackers or the NSA technically aren't able to break into LastPass servers. Sure, they could, physically steal them. They could probably download the data that's on them, but it's a zero knowledge encryption, which means that even LastPass has no idea of what's stored in your encrypted vault, your password vault. It's stored as a blob of text that's only decrypted with your master key. So, I mean, if you gave out your master key, you published it on the internet, then yes, chances are that the hackers and LastPass would be able to access that encrypted blob of text, which is your password vault. But I mean, as long as you're setting a secure master key, you're not, using it anywhere else but to sign into LastPass, chances are that no one is going to be able to get that. And we talked about this in the last session, and it was actually a surprise to me to find out that LastPass was in fact hit with a security breach. There was a couple security incidents, but one security breach where a hacker actually did gain access, but LastPass assures everyone that no actual encrypted data was decrypted or stolen. They were able to break into the servers, but they were not able to extract any of the encrypted vault text, which was the encrypted file format, or or able to decrypt that. So while there was an intrusion, there wasn't any loss of password or client password data or compromise of it. Then that kind of segues into our last point here, is that not even LastPass can see your password. But on the other side of that coin is that if you forget or you lose your master, there is next to no options for recovery. I think you can generate a backup seed through LastPass. I haven't done it, but I believe that option exists, so that you can store that seed in case you do forget your password, and then you can still get access. But I mean, if you don't do that preliminary backup step and you forget your password, you will and can lose your access to the password vault forever. That will be unrecoverable. I've heard of a user doing it. Luckily, they didn't have any passwords that were really lost. It was just a new account, but they lost access forever. So definitely something to keep in mind of, and that's why we wanted to touch on point one to begin with. So we'll move on to using that password manager. So once you sign in, you can see here that I got the create an account form on the right here. You'll set an email, personal or work email. The master password is going to be that password we generated in step one. You don't have to use the multi-seed phrase if you don't like that method of password generation. There's multiple ways to do it. I mean, if you have a super secure password that passes the tests of that website, more than welcome to use that password. It's just, for the most part, we wanted to provide that, since they're the top 6 easiest passwords is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So enter your step 1 master password in here. Once you've signed in, you're able to access your account. Ensure you've remembered your password. At that point, if you absolutely you don't feel confident that you can remember it, only write it down physically, and only store it in a locked safe or very secure in your physical location, somewhere that only you're gonna know how to get access to it in an extreme situation, and that it's on physical and not even printed out with a computer. Handwrite it down on a piece of paper, because that text can technically be stored in your password cache and be retrieved from there. So we're not going to really dive into the fine details of using LastPass, of like how to get your account set up and everything. We're just going to kind of the pros and cons of it. At the conclusion of this session, I have a wiki page and a write-up done that we're going to send out, that comes with documentation both from third parties and from LastPass on the nitty-gritty of getting started, of setting everything up, of how to use each feature. So we'll send that out after, but we just want to stress the importance of why password managers are kind of going to be the way of the future in securing your digital self, or creating that ease of use and securing your digital future. What I like to think is the ultimate side, or the ultimate tool, a part of a password manager, is the browser extension. LastPass is awesome. You basically download this free password, or the browser extension. You can install it into Firefox, Internet Explorer, Opera, Chrome, all of the majors, and then you just log in once, and boom, you have access to just click on everything and use it. It's really slick. So all of the major internet browsers support it. Basically, you can fetch any of your passwords super easily, almost instantaneously. The extension allows you direct signing into your accounts, so you don't even have to remember the username, let alone the password. And then you can slowly build your password collection. So on day one of setting up LastPass and installing the browser extension, it won't have any of your passwords. But as you log in one by one to each of your accounts, it'll ask you if you want to save the password. If you want to save the password, you can just hit yes. And then boom, you'll start building that catalog, and then you'll be able to go back through and start actually randomly changing passwords to each account and really securing your future. So we have some photos here. The left photo on the right here, this is the plugin. When you have a little module you'll click on, and you can open your vault. You can search for passwords right in a search box, super easy. You can do secure notes. So it's not just like usernames and passwords. You can do like credit cards. You can do like SSH keys. You can do like form fills. Like if you have automatic forms, you can generate secure passwords right from here. Any recently used that you use almost on a day-to-day basis, like Facebook, for example, you can just hop in and grab it. This is probably what you'll interact with the most with LastPass. I don't know if the other password managers are heavily browser-based like LastPass is, but I'm sure they are. So it'll be somewhat similar. The middle image we have here is that auto add to your LastPass. So say you log into Facebook, or in this case, malwaretips.com. It detects that you've never signed in to this website before with this account associated with your LastPass. So then it asks you, do you want to add this to your LastPass? And you can click, yes, I do. It'll store the password, it'll store the username. And anytime you visit malwaretips.com in the future, it'll ask you if you want to sign in to Spawn. and enter that password for you. And you can click yep, and boom, you're in a matter of seconds, rather than having to type out both the username and password and all that such. The right here is just kind of continuing that. You can see that on fields it adds a little icon that looks like the LastPass logo. It shows number 4 because that's how many password entries you have available that potentially could work for this website. And when you click on it, you can see down here that it drops a drop down menu. We can quickly click on like Atlassian.com. Boom, it'll type in the password, it'll type in the username, hit sign in, and we're in a matter of seconds. That's great. Yeah, if you want to get started with LastPass, there's a lot of great documentation out on their website. So like I said, I'm not going to dive into it too much, just how awesome it really is, how much it can change your life with using passwords. At the end, I'll send out that email. And then if you want any direct help or assistance, questions, getting started, please let me know or pop by the training session Slack chat room, and we'll be more than glad to help you get started if you have any questions that aren't answered or in the articles or the documentation we send out. With that said, step 3 is our final step, and that is going to be to secure the LastPass deployment or a LastPass account. And for users that aren't familiar, two-factor authentication is also referred to as 2FA or multi-factor authentication. What it is it's a secondary level of protection for account access. Basically, you have your password, you'll have your username, and then with two-factor or multi-factor, you'll have a 6-digit number that's being randomly generated. You set this all up prior to the first time ever logging in. Like two-factor is never enabled by default. You have to set it up after you log in the first time. You set it up, you'll link it with 9 times out of 10, it'll be your cell phone, but I mean, you can use a tablet, any device that can use the Google Authenticator app or the Microsoft Authenticator app or a text, some are cell phone text message based, is how you'll get your code. And then that'll generate it and send you the code so that you have to use that code to sign in. To enable it, you log into the websites, usually the same as always. However, if successfully inputting your username and password, that's where you'll see the random number. And I'll show you a photo example in the next slide here. During setup, yeah, you can, like I said, you can link it to a cell phone number, or it's going to usually be application based with a QR code. That is like the most that I've ever seen is Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, and it generates a random number every 30 seconds on the Authenticator app that you have to use to log in. If those numbers don't line up, then as simple as that, you can't sign in. So yeah, I have a website with guides to getting this all set up. I'm going to show you just slightly here what two-factor is. So on the left, we have our iPhone X. We've downloaded the Google Authenticator app that's free to download on the iPhone App Store. You don't have to create an account. You just have access right away. To set it up, we had to use the little plus button right here, scan a QR code on LastPass's website, and then it starts randomly generating this code. And as you see on the right here, Google Authenticator, this is what happens when we sign into LastPass with two-factor setup, is now it's asking us to run the Google Authenticator application and enter the verification code. So it's just simple as that. We take 397788 or whatever number is generated here, type it into this box quickly, hit authenticate before it resets. And if they match, you get access. If they don't match, it's going to ask you to enter it again. Sometimes you'll type it in and this will regenerate before you get hit enter. That's okay. You'll just have to do it again. No big deal there. But it's really important because it allows you to create 2 steps of entry. Not only do you have to have your password, your highly secure password that we generated in step 1, you also have to have physical access to a device. It's a device owned by the person who set up the account. There's highly sophisticated ways of spoofing a SIM. I won't get into that right now, but I mean, chances are that's not going to happen to most general users unless, you're a person of interest for whatever reason. You're going to have no problem. So you just need to type in the code into here, and that says basically, yes, I have the device, yes, I have the password, give me access. LastPass says, yes, you got it all. We can get you into the rest of your passwords, and now you're good for so long. And most users, after they do this, they click trust this computer on private devices for 30 days because they don't want to sign in every time, but it's more than okay to sign in every time if you think it's more secure to do that. So yeah, so we'll important things to remember about that. With that said, is that your master password is very important. If you forget or lose your master password, you'll lose complete access to your LastPass password vault, and thus lose access to every password that you have. If you need to remember this, if you can't remember it, like I said, write it down, but only physically. Store it in a locked vault. Don't ever touch it unless you do ultimately forget it one day, and that's only when you need to get it. And then what I would suggest too is once you do forget it, probably set a new one and repeat that step one process. The second thing that's really important to remember is that two-factor authentication can be just as dangerous. Luckily, there's a bit of other hoops that can be jumped through if you pay for the service or if you provided personal identification to have to access the service. Usually, the website operators can unlock your two-factor authentication after a bunch of jumping through hoops. Like you'll have to submit your ID, you'll have to like scan your driver's license, maybe your passport, send it away. You have to wait like a week for them to review it all, confirm that you say you are who you are, and then they'll unlock access. But if you need it in a pinch, that's a week of locked out access for losing access to your two-factor. So two-factor can be just as dangerous. And what we suggest with that is that you have a backup key and that you create a backup key and store that in a similar place that you're storing your written down master password, or it can even be in a secondary password manager, because this is gonna be the backup key to get into your password manager. To save that backup key somewhere, this backup key isn't as crucial as per se storing the passwords per se, but both are very important, and you don't want to be giving out your backup key. You don't want to store that in a Dropbox or on a notepad on your computer or print it out through a printer. You probably want to manually write it down and store that physically, because it's like your password, you can get access to the things. So not good to let that go out. And then make sure that you save any of those two-factor password keys when able, and always remember your master password so that you don't lose access. So we'll just quickly summarize what I kind of went through there. Utilizing the password manager allows the ability to only have to remember a single password. In this case, LastPass, you just remember one password and you have access to the hundreds of accounts that you might have. Setting a secure password and remembering is of the utmost importance. You need to have a secure password, because if somebody can just guess it, there's no good in having that to secure everything else. And then second, if you forget your password, you yourself will lose access to the saved password. So we don't want that to happen. Two-factor authentication provides an extra layer of protection and ensures that you have the device and the password, not just the password, in your account or in your possession to be able to access the account. And password managers are secure. Even in the event of LastPass, who did have one intrusion in the last 10 years, I think it was 2015 specifically, not even LastPass could see your password if they tried. And if they did, it would be an encrypted blob of text. So it's definitely secure there. We highly suggest moving forward with today's security that password managers are going to be very important. But we can't get our eyes off of the other best practices of when using passwords, because not every day are we going to be using LastPass or a password manager to share passwords or to use them. So some additional safeguarding best practices that I just want to touch on before we close out this session here is that you never want to store passwords anywhere on your computer or the internet other than a password manager such as LastPass. This extends to storing them in a notepad, a Word document, a Dropbox file location deep inside of your System32 file hierarchy inside of Windows. It might seem okay, but chances are if they're going to, if an attacker is going to gain access, they're going to be able to search through everything, because that's all that they have is time to do, is to attack people. So we want to not store that on a computer or on the internet in like a cloud service. The second thing is we never want to store passwords on your phone and notes, text messages, or emails. Emails and text messages, they hit third-party servers. Your text message hits a server at Bell or a server at Rogers or Sastel. Your emails hit a server at Google or a server at Outlook. We don't know without a doubt that they're not, taking shadow copies, able to, see clear text of our emails, which I know they can. But we just don't know if they do that. So we don't ever want to take that assumption that they don't. So storing it in there is you're ultimately providing it direct access to them if they wanted to use it. And we can't guarantee that everyone that works at these companies are good actors. So the third point is to never store your passwords in a notebook, sticky note, whiteboard, or piece of paper. If you do have to write it down, if you do have to write it down, so you don't forget your master key. Basically, what we mean by this point is that if you're writing down your master key or you're writing down your backup key, Put it on a piece of paper, write it with a pen, don't print it out. Make sure you're not in the sight of cameras or anything like that, or that you're having your photo taken in the time that you're writing this down, and then instantly lock it away and don't touch it again. Don't tell anybody where you store it. But like notebooks in your desk, sticky notes on your monitor, whiteboards at home, piece of papers just lying on your desk, all of those, chances are people aren't looking through your stuff, but it's another attack vector that people can get into, that can steal your password, get access to your information. And it's really just not the best way to do things. So we never suggest doing that. And when you dive even deeper into things like PCI and stuff like that, there's stricter rules saying that you can't do it. I don't know 100% what the governance is in terms of like day-to-day work practices, but it's usually just not a good habit or practice to get into. Get set up with a password manager. You can store all of your notes in there. You can have access on your phone. You don't have to have it in notes or on a notebook on that front. Fourth point is going to be to, like I said, if you have to write down, lock it away instantly. Make sure it's secured. Fifth point, never send or transmit passwords through Slack chat, email, or text message. So we mainly focus on the Slack chat on this front. A lot of people are messaging people and they say, hey, I need a password for this. It's a generally shared one, but it's still being passed through Slack chat. And like mentioned in point 2, those third parties might have access to see the messages. We don't know for certain if they abuse it or if they even can, but we don't want to assume that they can't if they can. So we just don't do that. If you need to share a password, it's likely best to share it verbally over a phone. Set a temporary password. If you do have to send it, that's instantly changed when the user logs in. Or when the interaction is complete, or use a password manager like LastPass. Since we can share passwords through LastPass, you can put it in LastPass, share it with that user, and then they get it, and you don't have to worry about sharing it through email, text message, Slack, or any of those various sorts. And then the last point is to change your passwords accounts periodically. So you might think, oh, I haven't been attacked yet. Why would I need to change my password? It's good practice to get into the habit of changing it. If an attacker was running a brute force, attack for, months on end, you changing it every 3 months is going to have to basically make him reset his attack vectors and rerun passwords that he might have already tried now that you've set it to. So it really helps. All of these points really help in taking that next step further into really securing your digital future. And then, we can help. So if you have questions, comments, concerns about anything discussed in the session today, any of the documentation that comes out, you can please let us know directly in our Slack chat channel, or you can message me directly. I'm more than glad to help, and we would be more than glad to reach out and help. So any questions are always welcome. I look forward to hearing from you guys and to the next session, and I thank everyone for coming.